Welcome to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. We are really glad you found us. In this podcast, me, Simon, a funeral director,
and me, Tina, I'm an independent celebrant.
we will discuss all things funeral in an informal space to demystify what happens when we say goodbye.
Based on your questions and queries, Si and myself are two industry professionals that are going to chat through the hows, whats and wherefores. We actively work in the funeral industry in Devon in the UK. So, we hope you enjoy the episode ahead. Welcome to Good Goodbyes. Hello, listeners. You are welcome to Good Goodbyes. It's Tina speaking. And I have got Kate with me today. And Kate has been a guest in the past. She's a female funeral director. That's a mouthful, isn't it, Kate? And today she's coming to chat to us all about being an embalmer. Kate, very warm welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me back.
And you work in North Devon in the UK, don't you, Kate?
I do,
a family firm.
It is a family business, yeah. I am the fourth generation, yeah.
And we better tell people where you work, can't we? You work with, the family firm is called...
Oh, Norman Lock and Son, sorry.
Just so we can...
It's early.
It's early in the morning. Everyone, when we're recording this, it's early in the morning, and Kate's only just got the children off to school and preschool, so she's all good. Well... Yeah. So what drew you into embalming? Was it something you always knew you wanted to do, or was it a bit of a surprise to you even?
It's definitely not something that I thought I wanted to do. I've always been interested in the human body, and I loved biology and learning about how the body works and everything while I was in school. From my last podcast, I said that I didn't plan to become a funeral director. It's just something that I started doing and really enjoyed doing it. Once I started my training, I did find the embalming side really fascinating. And whenever we had anybody embalmed by an outside embalmer, I would always go and ask if I could watch and stand there and ask loads and loads of questions. And I used to apologise, but he used to say, no, that's the way you learn, is by asking questions. And we had a book on our bookshelf at home. And I remember as a child, I always used to read this book on embalming and just flick through and look at the different pictures. And there was always a bit of a fascination there. And then, once I'd finished my qualifications in funeral directing, I decided to look into becoming an embalmer. And I did my training for that, which wasn't particularly easy. From here, there aren't any tutors nearby. So from here in Devon, I had to drive up to Wales once a week for 2 years, which was quite hard going, but it was definitely worth it. It's a really fascinating course.
Yeah. And I think there'll be listeners who are feeling a bit squeamish about the human body, and there'll be listeners who, like you and I, are very fascinated by how amazing it is, and people in between, really. And I, similarly, as a nurse, I was really fascinated by the human body. And when I learnt my most was when I went to theatres, and they were doing operations where you could see inside the human body, and I would think, oh, that's where the lungs are in relation to the heart. And that's what the spine looks like, and it was really, really interesting, because when it's in a picture, it's not the same as when it's in a person.
Definitely not. It's really interesting to see how everything is and how it works and how it's all linked together. And it is completely different to how you would draw it.
Yeah, draw it in a book.
Yeah.
And we are it's a fascinating creation, the human body, isn't it? It is a pretty amazing thing all around.
I just find it amazing. There's so many human beings on this planet, and we're all slightly different. And it's the same with embalming. You may embalm 6 90-year-old ladies, but they'll all be completely different. And it's really interesting.
So you must have to really individualize and learn how to individualize it then, Kate, if we're all a little bit different.
Yeah, you look at each case individually. You assess the condition of the body. Once you've got it, you look at if you've got any history there. Helps you understand how the body worked in life, to understand the processes after death.
Yeah. And what's a typical day then, if there is such a thing, for somebody who's embalming?
There's definitely no such thing as a typical day. If on an embalming day for me, I will check to see what cases I've got, make sure that we've got all the correct paperwork and permissions to embalm. I will then check the clothing, make sure we've got clothing for them to be dressed in, and then put my scrubs on and start.
Make sure all your equipment's there and everything you need, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's always kind of just there, really. Make sure it's obviously working before I start, but it's all out ready to go.
And what kind of brings dignity to it for you? Because I think that is sometimes a concern for some of our listeners potentially, or anyone trying to explain what embalming is to someone who's asking us professionals. How does that work for you?
I treat every person that I'm looking after as if they were one of my own loved ones. And I just think everybody deserves the same dignity once you pass away. So the person, we make sure that they're never naked. Their modesty is always covered. And it's a lovely thing to be able to do, to give somebody a natural resting. How do I explain it? They just look natural, and that's how they'll look forever, kind of thing. I think depending on the cause of death and the circumstances around death, sometimes people don't always look at their best. So it's lovely to be able to give that person and their loved ones a nicer, lasting image for them if they wanted to view them.
Yeah, because I think that's the sensitive bit of this conversation, isn't it? You know, when the thing that makes us look alive is because we're animated by our muscles, by our nerves, etc. You know, that's what makes us look alive. But when we're least animated, if this is going to make sense to our listeners, is when we're asleep, and we often look peacefully at rest, unless we're a big snorer or anything. But I think that's what I always imagine embalming is aiming for, is that peaceful at rest thing.
Yeah. You want to make them look like they're asleep, really. Just very peaceful and relaxed in their coffin. Yeah. And I think some people do look like that after they've passed away, and other people, they don't. And I think, that's part of our job, to give their loved one that nice, lasting image, to take comfort from the fact that they're at peace and relaxed.
What do you think is the biggest kind of misconception about embalming that people have?
I think it goes one way or the other. I think sometimes people will say, "Oh, you just do their hair and makeup," and I think, if only it was just hair and makeup. There's obviously a lot more to it than just hair and makeup and dressing them. And then on the other end of the scale, people think we do the full ancient Egyptian canopic jars, removing organs and everything. They don't really understand that it is a very dignified process. We're not removing brains and putting organs in jars and putting them up on the shelf and things. So yeah.
And it's neither of those things, is it?
It's an in-between, And I think once you kind of explain the processes, people do go, oh, okay, right, okay. But there's definitely a lot more to it than meets the eyes. There's lots of different chemicals that we can use depending on the type of deceased and the circumstances around their death. It is quite a scientific process, really.
Is that what appeals to you as an embalmer? Do you like the science?
I do, yes, definitely. I love seeing the human body working again. I think we use the circulatory system in the same way as it's used when you're alive, but obviously the heart isn't pumping. We have a manual pump to pump the fluid around the body, but to see the fluid going into the tissues, it's very satisfying.
And obviously some people get their ideas about embalming, the general public, most of us, from TV and films and things. Is there anything you've ever seen that you thought, like, oh dear, no, it's not?
A lot of things. My husband gets really mad with me when we watch things like Silent Witness, because I'm like, that's just not right. That's not how it would be when they're doing post-mortems, and it's just frustrating to see things that are just not quite as they would be in real life. One of the most common things is to look at a body and they're always laying there with their eyes closed and their mouth closed just after they've passed away, and you think it's not always like that.
No, because in the same way we're deeply asleep, our mouth is sometimes open, isn't it?
Exactly, and once all the muscles relax after you've passed away, everything relaxes in your face and your mouth will naturally fall open because there's no muscles there to hold it closed. So to see these deceased on the telly laying there with their eyes closed and mouth closed.
Yeah.
Not quite right.
Not quite right. And as a nurse, it's what you learn. I mean, as a nurse, you learn how to, we use the term lay somebody out, which means that, you know, after their death, you would put them in a position that would encourage their mouth to close and look more peaceful. And you're taught as a nurse how to do some of that. And nursing practice is different now. I mean, a lot of people might be encouraged to be on their side just before death so that their family can hold their hands and feel close to them. When someone's lying on their back, it's sometimes hard to get close to them, actually. So the position of somebody you want to alter quickly after the last breath, so it will be better for the family when they view them after death, if that makes sense.
I think people put them in, they could be in different positions if they're in a lot of pain to we would always kind of say to people to, if you can, put them on their backs. For all sorts of reasons. It's definitely not always possible, but
absolutely, for all sorts of reasons about how the body behaves when there's no circulation. So how do you take care of yourself emotionally then when you work so closely to death? What do you do for you?
I try not to get too emotionally attached to the people that I'm looking after. Sometimes it's harder than others, but I think you've got to protect yourself in that way. And then it's important to take time away from work. I play some sports. I like reading. Just having that time away from work is important to realise that there is life beyond death. So I think if it can be all encompassing, that you can wake up, the phone rings, you're out all night picking somebody up. You do need that time away.
And time for us to see the whole of our existence, life and death.
Exactly. And I think sometimes you do get a little bit emotionally fatigued, and you think you feel yourself almost not caring as much as you should, and you think, right, I need to step back, and then you go back in with fresh eyes, and I can feel it sometimes. You think, oh, that hasn't really affected me, and that really should have affected me. I need to just take a bit of time back, and then you go again, kind of thing.
That they've started to use a phrase to explain that for those of us who care in all these different ways, and they talk about compassion fatigue. So, we need to replenish if we get that feeling. So when you're embalming, have you had moments that have been unexpectedly beautiful or meaningful for you?
I think sometimes I've embalmed and the person has not looked very peaceful. Perhaps it may be a traumatic death, or they were in a lot of pain or something at the end, and they've not looked very peaceful at all. And then you spend a few hours embalming them, you dress them, you put them in their coffin, you do their hair, make them look nice. And to see them looking peaceful and at rest, it's a lovely feeling. And sometimes the families will say, oh no, we don't want to see them again. They didn't look very good at the end. But when you see how peaceful they are looking, sometimes we say, well, this might be a nicer lasting image for you, and you can gently encourage them to come and view their loved one. You obviously can't make them, but there's been a few occasions where the families have said, oh no, we really don't want to. It didn't look like dad at the end, or didn't look like mum. And we said, well, they do look completely different now. So this might be a nice opportunity for you to have a better lasting memory of them. And then they've come and viewed them and spent a lot of time with them and taken great comfort from that. And then they've been incredibly grateful that you've pointed them in the right direction for that. And that's for me, the nicest part of the job, is to be able to give them that peace of mind and just to see their loved one again in that relaxed and peaceful fashion.
And to have all that time and that different lasting memory is really special, isn't it?
Yeah. We had a case once where a gentleman he'd been ill for a very, very long time, over the course of about 20 years, and his wife had stood by his side and nursed him over that time. And when he passed away, it wasn't particularly peaceful, and she said, I don't want to see him again. I can't bring myself to see him. And we said, well, it wasn't very good for you at the end, but he does look very peaceful now, and we think it might be nice for you to come and to see him. And she came and sat with him for at least an hour every day for a week. And she just said, it's like going back 20 years to seeing him how he was before he became poorly. And that was so lovely to be able to give that to her, and she was so grateful for that. And I think it just helps with the grieving process.
How many people choose embalming?
On a percentage, I think if you were to give people the option, they would say no, because they don't understand it. And then when you explain to people the main benefits of embalming, they then say, oh yes, that's a good idea. I think on the outside people go, oh no, we don't want them being touched with, we don't want them being, they've already been through enough, we don't want them being poked and prodded, is what we hear an awful lot. And when you just explain to people the processes and the advantages of embalming, they'll say, oh, actually, yes, we will have that done then. So we probably embalm 60% of our clients. Yeah, it's just nicer for the families. The deceased can lay in the chapel of rest up until the day of the funeral. We don't need to worry about temperature controlled environments, and it's safer for us to work with the deceased as well, because one of the main benefits of embalming is sanitation. So it's killing a lot of the germs and pathogens which grow after death, unfortunately.
And like you say, it's a circumstances led thing sometimes, isn't it? If somebody wants to have somebody at home for a few days, the circumstances in which, over what period they want the viewing to happen, the circumstances of the death, whether they want a particularly green funeral, there'll all be factors, won't there, that will help them decide.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, for green factors, they do for green funerals, they do not allow embalming, which is fine, and they have to be buried in like natural fibres and everything, which is fine. We abide by that. But obviously, if there's we'll say, right, we can't have the funeral like 2 months down the line in that case, so we have to work everything in to fit in what they want. We had a lady who wanted to keep her husband at home in the middle of summer, and she was adamant that she did not want him embalmed, and we had to explain, unfortunately, that nature will take its course, and this isn't going to be possible for you to keep him at home for 2 weeks.
And I'll pop a link into the show notes for our listeners, because we did an episode on that, and you really do have to think it through if you're not having embalming, if you want somebody at home, and one of the things you'll have to do to manage that carefully.
And I think people say, well, this is what used to happen years ago. Where we're very traditional, very rural still. And yes, the body did lay in the house. It didn't go to a chapel of rest. The body laid in the house until the day of the funeral. But the funeral will be 2 or 3 days after the day of death. Whereas now we're looking at, 3 to 4 weeks is the average funeral.
Yes, and people didn't have centrally heated homes, Kate.
Well, no, exactly.
Had places that, it was going to be colder, and the preserving of the body was going to be different. Interesting.
My granddad always used to tell me a story about somebody they had, this was years and years and years ago, and he died next to the fire, and she said, oh, I didn't want him getting cold, so I've been stoking the fire all night long. She can imagine it wasn't the best.
No,
the best thing for the gentleman.
No, kindly meant, but not necessarily helpful.
It's everything that you want to do in life is kind of the opposite when somebody passes away, unfortunately. Warm and cozy.
Do family members want to get involved in the embalming process themselves, or they're curious? Is it possible if they did want to?
I've never had it asked. I probably would say no, not in the actual embalming process. I think you probably would have to draw the line there somewhere. We will happily let families come and help style hair, do makeup, help with dressing and that kind of thing. Excuse me. And that does happen. More often than not, actually, people want to get involved. But with the actual embalming process, I wouldn't feel comfortable having a family member watching the process.
Yes. It's a technical thing in places, isn't it? And
it can be. Yes.
And I think
it's the same kind of thing. You wouldn't invite somebody in to watch surgery. I think you have to draw the line somewhere.
And even thinking about the fact that the dead have some privacy.
Exactly.
So they can't say whether they do or don't want people present at these at the process. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense what you're saying, actually. What do you wish that the families understood a bit better about what goes on behind the scenes?
I think families, they don't really appreciate what goes on behind the scenes, as in, I think they think you pick them up from where they pass away and they're dressed and straight in the coffin, ready to be viewed. I think sometimes people will say the next day, oh, can we come and see them? And it's like, oh, well, just give us a couple of days. We need a little bit of time just to get everything ready. It's not just a case of picking them up and putting them in a coffin. There's a lot more to it than that. Obviously, we wash the deceased and then do the embalming process, dress the deceased, do the hair. And sometimes we like to leave a day or so to let the body kind of settle after the embalming process and see if there's anything else that needs to be done. Especially with anything kind of trauma related, you obviously want to make sure that it's the best lasting image that family are going to have. We just don't like rushing into it. Yeah,
that makes lots of sense, doesn't it?
Again, everybody's different.
Yeah, no, I agree. Is there any aspect of your work that you feel comforts the living, that, you know, you've talked a little bit already about that lasting image, but is there anything else you think is comforting about it?
Just being able to spend the time with the loved one if they need that time. I think that's the most important thing. Just giving them the option to do that. We've had cases where they've not been viewable for various reasons and the families have wanted to. And I think having that option taken away from them, that can cause quite a lot of grief just in itself. And we always say you can come and sit with a closed coffin, but it's never quite the same. So I think, it's just giving them that time with their loved one. I think it's a very important thing, especially with the time lapsing now between passing away and the funeral. We are talking weeks now. And I think it's important, if they want to have that time with their loved one, that they can have it. And again, it's not everybody that wants to. Some people, well, it's probably a fewer people spend time with them. A lot of people say, no, we just want to remember them as they are, which again is absolutely fine. It's a very personal preference. There's no right or wrong thing to do.
Yeah, we all grieve differently, don't we? And we all want our memories to be whatever we choose for ourselves. What's the strangest but kind of maybe kindest request you've ever had?
We often have people being dressed in strange things or having strange things put in their coffins. Obviously for cremation, we have to be quite careful what can go in, really. But for burial, there aren't many. There's obviously no regulations. People often go with like a chocolate bar or a bottle of their favourite drink or favourite book. I don't think we've ever had anything particularly strange. I've had often people who ask for like a photo of a tattoo or something, which to start with I thought, well, that's a bit strange, but actually it's just part of that person, isn't it? I think.
Yes. And your memory starts tricking you, doesn't it? You think over time, you hear people saying, oh, I can't remember his face. And it's having photographs. So maybe, it's a little bit of that.
Yeah. There's a company I've seen in America that they will remove the tattoo from the body. And I don't exactly know what it involves, but it's kind of removing that bit of skin and preserving that and then framing it for the family, which I don't know, it's a little bit odd. We take comfort from it. I find that a little bit strange. Like a photograph is fine, but actually removing the tattoo to keep forever, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But...
Yes. I've not heard that before, Kate, and I'm having a similar reaction. I'm thinking, I don't know what I think about that.
Yeah, I was reading an article about it, and it came up, this company that they preserve tattoos forever. Thought,
yeah. I mean, the only, not so much an embalming request, but I know somebody who wanted a lock of somebody's hair. So
that's very common. Yeah,
that's probably quite common, isn't it? But the other thing I've heard somebody different say is, when we're viewing him, can he have his glasses on?
Yeah.
He wouldn't arrive without them. He'd look like somebody else. But when he's actually goes to be cremated, can he have his sunglasses on? because he had this big thing whenever he went outside on sunny days about how bright it was, and he had to have his shades on, and he used to think he looked really cool in his shades. And they said he would find it quite funny to think he had his shades on during the cremation process. So they wanted to have his sunglasses on, but only for the final bit, which did make us all smile.
That is funny, yeah. No, we've not had anything quite like that. It's not embalming related, but our most bizarre request was a chap wanted a coffin. He said he wanted to be pulled by a horse, and we said that's fine, we can arrange a horse-drawn hearse. He goes, no, I want the coffin on the back of the horse. And we're like, no, I don't think that's possible. But how do you think we're going to secure the coffin to the back of the horse? And he was deadly serious. He said, oh, ratchet straps. Like, he'd really thought this through, that we could ratchet strap the coffin to the horse's back. And I'm just having to say, I'm really sorry, that's just not gonna,
it might be,
I'm afraid,
a bit unsafe. A poor horse there as well.
A horse, poor lady, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a bizarre request, but yeah.
People do say interesting things, don't they?
Definitely think beef does funny things to the brain.
Yeah, it does. So do embalmers usually want to be embalmed?
I would say so. I think as an embalmer, I look at the body and you think it really is just your shell. What makes you is inside. We are just the same kind of skin and bones all together. But I think I would like to be embalmed. I think from, preservation, presentation, it's all positive. And it gives, if anybody wants to come and see me in the Chapel of Rest, they can do. Yeah. I think watching the processes, it's nothing to be scared of. Obviously, I do it. Yeah. I actually embalmed one of my tutors, which was, not a tutor, but somebody that I did spend a lot of time embalming with. When I found that very strange, he taught me all the basic skills, and then I was embalming him, and it was quite hard actually, because it just reminded me of, spending time with him really. But
it was emotionally difficult, is that what you mean?
And then at the same time, it was a privilege to be able to do it for him. But I would say I probably do want to be embalmed, yes. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. So then, just before we wrap this up, as the saying goes, is there anything extra you wanted to say or let people know about being an embalmer and embalming?
I think ask questions. I think there's a lot of misconceptions around embalming. And I think if there's anything you want to know, ask questions, because there really is nothing to hide. It's a very dignified process. Sometimes it's very difficult. If somebody's had a post-mortem, it's a completely different process. But I think, if you wanted to know any more about it, speak to an embalmer or speak to your funeral director about it, because it's definitely not something to be frightened of or to hide away from.
Perfect. And if there's any additional information, Kate and I will kind of pop that in the show notes so you can maybe go and find out more.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kate. That's been an excellent conversation. Thanks for coming back on.
You're very welcome. Nice to speak to you.
No, we've been chatting about embalming, and you've been listening to A Good Goodbyes. Thank you.
You've been listening to Good Goodbyes, the Funeral Facts podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment and share. Drop any questions on our social media, on Instagram, or in the text option in the show notes.
Si and I are qualified professionals, but we always advise our clients to seek any additional support from medical practitioners if they need to. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Stay well and be kind to one another.